All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. We're happy to have you on this Wednesday, June the 15th. Hard to believe that we're halfway through the month of June. It seems like it just was May, the 1st of May, when we had one of our guests on. We had Robert on with us, so we'll let Robert introduce himself once again later on. But before we do that, we want to welcome to the Carolinas Weather Group tonight, and thank you for tuning in for the second week of talking about hurricanes and how local people are preparing for the area throughout the East Coast and Gulf of Mexico areas. And we have several guests on tonight that'll talk to you guys about what they are doing in their individual locations and kind of what they're doing for their followers and viewers there on TV and also at the weather office. Before we get into that, a couple of housekeeping rules. It is a live broadcast, so if you do want to interact with us, you can follow us on Twitter or our Facebook. We will be monitoring those. If you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to submit them via Twitter or Facebook, and we'll get those answered. I think I have TweetDeck up, and I think that Peter is also monitoring as well. So between the both of us, we'll get them answered tonight if you have any. Also, if you're listening on the rebroadcast, we'll, at the end of the show, talk to our guests, let them give out their social media accounts, how you can get a hold of them. And as far as I know, I think all of our shows are up to date on the podcast, so if you haven't downloaded the past couple of shows, they should be ready for you guys to download them. So before we get into tonight's show, let's toss it around to our panelists. I do want to mention that Shay is off tonight. He has some friends in the from out of town there in Charleston, so they are out kiteboarding, and James and I tried to get Shay to Periscope or Facebook Live or something along those lines, but he just wouldn't do it. I think he's afraid he's going to lose his phone or something. So maybe in a show to come, right, James?
We're going to try. We're going to try to get live surf kiting, and we're going to try to get surf kiting. That's not what it's called. And we're going to try to get David. Yeah, we're going to try to get David to frolic live one week.
That's it. Well, why have it to you, James? What's been going on there in the South Charlotte area today over the past few days?
You know, it's heating up quite a bit, as I think most people watching and or on our show tonight will say. We got some good afternoon thunderstorms rolling through. My apartment is just about as warm as it is outside, so hopefully you can't tell that I'm sweating.
Not at all.
Not at all, yeah. It's not the big forehead thing at all.
Nope.
Most interesting weather piece of information I saw today was I was watching our friends at WCNC, and they took 2 direct lightning strikes just before the 5 o'clock hour during their 4 o'clock newscast. And I had them on mute, and I was wondering why for the longest time all they had up on the screen was a screen grab of their interactive radar from their website, and then Brad Penovich's mic, because apparently that was all they were able to put on the air for a few minutes this afternoon while all the systems rebooted. So No one is immune to the powers of lightning.
Well, you know, the last time that Brad's system froze, he made a cameo on one of the late night shows. So we'll have to be watching over the next few days and see if that happens again.
At one point, they got stuck on the wide jib shot. They were tossing from the desk to him, and you could see him just standing in front of the green screen. And I was really just waiting for him to like walk over with his phone and start doing the weather this way. But
we'll have to. We'll see if it's on Conan O'Brien or something. So yeah, let's pass it over to, I guess, on the west side of Charlotte there in Belmont, Mr. Kit. How's things going on in that area?
Things are going great. I had a job in East Charlotte earlier today, just getting a few things done, just old school job. And it had to be wrapped up rather quickly because a brief shower came through with very big drops, so they were all very scared. I was like, it's okay, it's headed out, just look here, it's headed out. There was more stuff on the way, but it was like 15 minutes from wrapping up the event anyway, so it was all good. On my way home, though, I stayed on 85, and all of the storms that were in central Charlotte were right to my left, right to left, yeah. It was pretty cool, because like when I was driving into it, I was first driving towards it, and then 85 turns. So I saw sort of like a a shelf kind of cloud. It wasn't full. It wasn't good enough to really post on social media, but it was a cool cloud formation that I thought. So yeah, other than that, we got a good storm at my house. We got about an inch of rain, which is good because Mom's plants were needing watering that I haven't done. But other than that, it's been a pretty good day. I'm enjoying the storms coming back after the heat. Heat was fun, but it's also fun to wave as it leaves.
Here you go. I can demonstrate what you're talking about. Here's 85. Oh, that need a different color than black.
Yeah, I told you guys before the show, we're really laid back here, you know. So
this is our high-tech telestrator. I'd like to show everybody. Paint is awesome.
That little bit that just over 85 was actually, I had just passed that strip of 85 just before it had formed. So I saw headlights popping on behind me as I left, and had a couple big drops happen.
Speaking
That's how
of
I thought
80,
Brad was going to do weather today, but it didn't happen.
Speaking of 85, I was at Charlotte Motor Speedway last night doing the weather, and we had an hour delay for lightning, but we never had rain at the racetrack. And as soon as I got on 85, which is, I don't know, what would you say, maybe a half a mile from the track or whatever, it was just pouring the rain. So for the folks who live in Charlotte, no, rain and Interstate 85 really don't go well together. So it makes for an interesting commute. But let's go up to Charlottesville, Virginia, with Mr. David Reese tonight. David, how's the weather up there in your area?
It was beautiful the past couple of days. I mean, we topped out at 84 degrees Monday and Tuesday. Today, about 83, 84, thanks in part to clouds. And then over the weekend, we actually had 95 officially on Saturday, which is the warmest that we've been in over a year and a half. Yes, last year we only hit 93 degrees officially at show. So 95, wife and I were out. It was definitely on the warmer side, but the humidity wasn't oppressive like it's starting to get out there right now. Tomorrow I think it's going to be one of the more humid days we've had around here in quite some time. Now we are looking at the possibility for maybe a few showers and storms later tomorrow night and Friday morning. And then Father's Day around here is looking gorgeous. Highs in the low to mid 80s, lots of sunshine, low humidity. So we're timing it up just right, finally.
It does look like it's going to be a beautiful weekend, cooler temperatures and less humidity for all of the southeast. So,
yep.
And finally, let's go up to Peter up in south of Jersey. It's not been as active this week, has it, Peter?
No, as you can see, I'm not dead, so that's good. So if you've been following the show the last few weeks, I've been getting destroyed by one storm after another, bow echoes, all that good stuff. But this week has been pretty nice. Last Saturday, we were supposed to have severe storms, didn't happen, so they made a big deal about nothing again. And but this whole week's been pretty good, low humidity, and tomorrow we're supposed to have maybe some strong storms come in, and I'm supposed to go to a graduation ceremony. So if you hear anybody get struck by lightning in Jersey tomorrow, you know it could be me. So
oh, don't say that.
Mother Nature's had like a thing against me the last few weeks, so.
And everyone note the plaid has returned.
It has returned.
Yeah, speaking of lightning strike, I actually seen there's some folks eating at a restaurant in Myrtle Beach just a couple of hours ago, sitting out on the outdoor patio and actually got struck by lightning. So kind of a freak thing that's happened in that area. So, well, let's get away from the thunderstorm talk, and we'll kind of talk about what we're on here tonight for, and that's hurricanes and how our areas are preparing for the hurricane season. It's already been an active start to the tropical season. We already have had our C-named storms, so though none of them really been strong, but it's still kind of been an active start to the hurricane season. So let's talk with our guests and bring those guys in and kind of start our topic off tonight. First, I'm going to introduce Robert Garcia, who has joined us before. He's down there at the National Weather Service in Miami. Robert, how you doing? And welcome back to the show. Uh-oh, he's muted. Oh, we're having issues. We'll have to bring Robert back here in just a minute.
If you can just get a whiteboard and just write things down and hold it up.
Yeah. Well, let's go a little north of Miami, and let's bring in Jason Dunning from Fort Myers and Naples area. Jason is meteorologist for WBBH there in the Fort Myers area. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be here. Hey, Robert. I think maybe his mic's working again.
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. This is probably the first quiet weather day we've had since the beginning of June. Back when we had Tropical Storm Colin coming up into the Gulf of Mexico, we had a lot of the sort of the peripheral side effects of that. A lot of heavy rain, even up to a week after Colin, exited the area, left this trail of tropical moisture, and we had basically rain and heavy downpours morning, midday, afternoon, and some areas in Southwest Florida got up to 10 inches of rain since the beginning of June. So it's been really busy so far, but finally we get a chance to breathe a little bit, and then we've got some more active weather on the way later this week. By active, I just mean just your everyday thunderstorms. We're not really expecting severe weather.
Well, I'm glad you guys have been able to catch a break down there. Even before this fall, the wintertime and springtime has been really active for all of you there in Florida, weather-wise. So.
Yeah. I've been here 5 years now, and I'm a native Floridian. I'm from North Florida, but this was certainly the most active winter that we've had, with the tornado outbreaks in January and February, and finally it started to slow down a little bit in the spring. But this is, in the wintertime, that's usually when we have a chance to relax a little bit, but no, it wasn't the case. And Robert Garcia can tell you that.
Yeah, I felt like I was living in Fort Myers for a while there in January.
Yeah. You can come stay over here. I'll anyway.
I'll be back in town tomorrow because I got another interview request from one of the TV stations over there afternoon. So,
I hope it's not the competitor.
No, it'll be in Spanish, so I think we're okay for you there.
Well, Robert, let's bring you in. I think Tim may have dropped out, so we'll have to get him back here in just a second. But Robert, welcome back to the show. How's things been there in South Beach for the past couple of weeks?
Oh, it's been wet. Not quite as wet as it's been over in Mr. Dunning's backyard, but definitely pretty wet on this side too. We had our first. I've been on midnight shifts. Tonight's my 7th one, which is always the best one because you get to leave afterwards, and you don't come back for a few days. You get to enjoy the weather and the beach. But it's been interesting. Today was the first day that the east coast of Florida really got the sea breeze thunderstorm set up to make it kind of fun over here with some thunder. Not too much lightning, thankfully. The strikes, we still didn't have a lot of coverage. But in terms of us here already getting through the sea storm, I'm looking at NHC next door, and they're working on the outlook for this evening. But as you can all see on hurricanes.gov, it looks like the Bay of Campeche will be fun to watch this weekend.
I was getting ready to talk about that. I was going to pull up the latest outlook, but it does look like there's a little bit of development possible there in the Bay. You want to talk a little bit about that before we kind of go into our topic tonight, Robert?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to anyone here today, but we were kind of talking about it over the last few days, and this is that time of year where this is a more typical thing that you see, these weaker little storms that may pop up in the Caribbean, or even that is still a little early, maybe in the Gulf. And it'll be kind of interesting to see when I started my string of midnight shifts, the guidance was kind of hinting at this blob of moisture maybe going towards Louisiana. And then it became, well, it's going to go towards western parts of Louisiana and towards the Texas border. And now all of a sudden it's just keeping it pretty much all over Mexico there in Campeche. And so that's a positive for those of us in the southeast U.S. Those areas have, between Colin and then this storm, it could be interesting since they have a little bit more topography than we do on this side of the Gulf. But otherwise, for us, it'll be interesting to see how this moisture interacts with the front that's coming, because that could be another rainmaker and keep all of us in South Florida pretty busy if we get flooding rains again.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll have to watch that as we go throughout the weekend into early next week. But let's talk about you guys in Florida, because while we try to get Tim back, Tim's from the Richmond area, so a little bit different for his area. But Robert, for you and Jason, Florida, when we think of hurricanes, Florida comes to mind right off the top of our head with the history you guys have had. But here recently, it's not been as active storm-wise. We've had some tropical storms and stuff like that, but no major hurricanes in that area. So talk to us about that. Is there maybe a little bit of, I know, an influx of people moving into the area there. With these new people not really experiencing tropical season, I'm sure there's some concerns there in the Miami area and as well as the Fort Myers area.
Yeah, we've been doing a really large campaign. Actually, we had a big media conference for the Miami market media specifically, just because there were some concerns about the amnesia factor. We haven't had a major hurricane make landfall in Florida. Actually, I don't think we've had a hurricane make landfall in Florida since Wilma did in 2005. And I can tell you, I was living in Fort Myers when Wilma came through in 2005. A lot of people have moved into our state since then. David was up in Sarasota when Wilma came through, and it's over a decade now. It's unprecedented to have such a long string between landfalls, and so we're kind of trying to get folks spun up to the idea that you need to be ready. You have those ready kits, get those preparations done, but also how to stay weather aware. Back in 2005, I remember even 2004 when Charlie came through, I remember my cell phone pretty much became a brick about 6 hours after we lost electricity. And that's not necessarily much different now, but there a lot of things dealing with the hurricane culture in Florida have changed. A lot of those folks that have moved in may have never experienced anything related to a major hurricane. They may have seen a tropical storm in their time here, or maybe experienced it in another part of the country, the outer fringes of a storm. So kind of reorienting them to one of the things that actually has been interesting is, do you evacuate or do you stay? That's actually a really important question, because if you leave, if you don't have to, you actually clog up the roads. Whereas if you stay and you're supposed to leave, you could put yourself in pretty large danger. So those are some of the things we're actually tackling, a lot of the storm surge issues. And starting this year, you're going to see a lot of noise on that. I know Jason last year was at a workshop in Fort Myers where we talked in depth about some of the new stuff that's coming out in terms of the maps. We're going to have inundation maps this year to help guide emergency managers in those important decisions. And next year, it's going to be official. We're going to, as of right now, it looks like we're going to have storm surge watches and warnings be products that go out. And I think that's going to help hopefully clear up some of the confusion, because you're not going to have the wind and the surge tied together anymore. So that's kind of the ball of wax we're dealing with. It's that age-old problem, getting people prepared, letting them know, hey, what's the threat, and then when the threat presents itself, do you stay or do you go? And we're tackling those three things as the season goes, but we're already in the sea storm, and we're not even through mid-June, so it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the pace of the year goes.
Definitely. And Jason, what about you guys up in the Fort Myers area?
I kind of have to echo what Robert was saying. This is such a unique place because we have so many transplants. So there's a lot of people here now that obviously don't remember Wilma, and they don't remember Hurricane Charlie. So every year we try to go out and do different outreach activities. Last week I was down in Collier County, which is the home county of Naples, and did a presentation for the sheriff's office as they were going through their training. But I do kind of worry that going 11 years without anything, without a hurricane making landfall, that I hope it doesn't lull people to sleep. And when we go through our seasonal forecasts, which I'm kind of mixed about that, because people ask me, is it going to be a quiet hurricane season, and is there going to be a busy hurricane season? But I hate to evaluate that based on preseason outlook and a number of storms, because as you guys well know, you've heard that it only takes one storm to make it a busy hurricane season. But when we do those seasonal outlooks, we of course try to remind people that now is the time to get ready. When we do a lot of promotional campaigns. But I do worry that it's been so long since we've had something.
Robert, and even with you, Jason, you were talking about the transplants moving in. Robert, you guys have a big Spanish population in your area, so I'm sure that it's difficult for you guys, or maybe not difficult, but a little bit more, puts a little bit more work into finding translations and getting the material out to to the Spanish population. Talk to us a little bit how you guys prepare for that, and then Jason, with you guys, with folks moving in from up north and stuff like that, do you guys do anything special to attract attention to the possibilities of storm effect, and since they've not really experienced it like native Floridians have, like you guys? So Robert, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, the Spanish crowd is definitely very vulnerable in South Florida. A lot of, in fact, in specifically in interior Southwest Florida, parts of Collier County, they're some of our most vulnerable transplants because they come here maybe from regions of the world where hurricanes and tropical weather are not common. And what ends up happening is there's a language barrier with the population that we have to try to overcome together with the counties and with the local media partners like Jason. And one of the things that we're actually doing is we're beefing up some of our staffing here at the Weather Service offices in Florida, specifically the Miami office. By the end of next month, we're going to have 5 Spanish speakers on staff to provide service primarily to South Florida, but also to other parts of the state as needed. And we have another Spanish speaker in Key West at our forecast office there to really kind of shore up the efforts. We can have around-the-clock coverage with a Spanish speaker available if necessary. So actually last week during Colin, we fulfilled quite a bit of interview requests, and the goal of that is to let folks know in ways that are understandable in both the English language and the Spanish language what the threats are to them, how to prepare, and just kind of ease them into this preparedness aspect of our efforts kind of more consistently. I think our hope with doing that here at the Miami Forecast Office is to be able to provide that bridge. A lot of the social science studies, there's one video from the 2011 tornado outbreak in Alabama from Tuscaloosa. You can find it on YouTube. It's a family that speaks Spanish. It's very, very catches your eye because they have no idea, what this tornado, they had no idea this thing was coming until basically they saw it. And the reaction, I think, is priceless. And one of the things as an agency we've been trying to hit at a national level, we actually have a national team from all over the country that we've gathered, is to try to solve the communication barrier there to help everybody at least close those gaps. So as we go over the next few years, you're going to start seeing this season, for example, more and more social media in Spanish, more and more official media by the NWS in Spanish, and then we're going to probably in the next few years hit stride enough where you'll see more and more websites. The Hurricane Center is working with Florida International University, which is our host site here in Miami. They have actually teamed up to create a website for the Hurricane Center in Spanish together to help with this effort. So I think it's a big growth area for us. We have NOAA Weather Radio in Spanish now in South Florida, which is a big deal. When I was here 6 years ago, that was a dream. Now we have it. So we're making big strides towards that. But at the end of the day, our goal is to reach as many vulnerable population members as possible, because those are the folks, at the end of the day, when they have to make that decision when there's danger, we want them to have the best information not only on what to do, but what threat they're facing. And as we get into this season, you're going to see those tropical cyclone impact graphics, those hurricane threat and impact graphics, what they're going to be called this year. And they're basically like Google Maps. You probably saw them on the Carolina WFO website. And those are really powerful because graphics are universal. You don't have to, the colors mean something. You can easily translate that, and everybody can present the same thing. So Jason is over in Fort Myers. He's got 2 offices, the Tampa office and the Miami office, that help cover that area. He'll have a consistent image. He won't have to stitch it together as often as he used to. So Charlotte's another example. You have 3 weather forecast offices that serve that area. And in fact, they're making huge strides. They're going to do an integrated warning team coming up. The Greenville-Spartanburg office is leading that effort to try to close these gaps. Because we're a team. And that's, at the end of the day, we're a team here to keep people safe. So however we can do that best, that's what we're trying to figure out, and we're trying to go in that direction. But with the Spanish language, I'm really excited about what we're doing here in South Florida. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of people.
Robert, that's really great to hear, because, and we've talked about it on this show before, and folks may be familiar with it, but in the Charlotte area in particular, besides having this large metropolitan area with multiple offices, Lancaster County in South Carolina protrudes up into GSP's area, but that one's controlled by Columbia. So despite best efforts, sometimes there's a bit of a mismatch there. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah, and there's new tools that are coming, kind of like what we have right now with Google Hangouts. We are going to have, it's still, we just started moving to it. So in the past, we've had the ability, I can pick up the phone, I can call my neighbor in office, I can chat them. Pretty soon, we're going to have the ability to share a screen with them. And this is going to be really cool because we could all be in the warning process together, kind of like what we're in right now. Of course, we're still developing it, we're still taking the baby steps, but in a few years, I think that's going to become more and more the norm, especially for areas like Charlotte that are split between different WFOs. I know the Fort Myers metro area, we split it between us and Tampa, and we make a large effort to try to coordinate just so things look united and you don't have one county being left out and another county's in. We try to make it a lot more seamless so the information, remember, we're trying to give people good information. How can we do it if we're confusing them? So that's the goal there. We're trying to make those confusions as minimal as possible.
That's some good information. Not just for your area, but for all the areas throughout the country. And Jason, before we bring Tim in, I want to toss it to you right quick. And you guys in the Fort Myers area, you have a lot of retirees down there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of folks who that live in the Northeast or maybe up towards the Great Lakes and not really had to deal with hurricanes per se. So what special efforts do you guys make down at your station there to kind of educate those folks?
I tell you what, this time of year we are constantly, at least once a week, going out and visiting different retirement communities and doing outreach programs. And they are so interested. They come down here, of course, they've only visited Florida, so hurricanes, for a lot of them, are, it's just a foreign idea, so they don't know really anything about it. So it's kind of nice to be able to go out there and talk to them and sort of prep them on what to expect. We do a lot of visits at some of the hardware stores and stores like home improvement stores like Home Depot and Lowe's to try to reach out to people. I hear myself in echo. Is that normal? Sorry.
I think it might be coming. Oh, there we go.
I should just do what I do on air and just keep going. Sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, so we do a lot of things, and we always make a big point of it on air, especially as we get into hurricane season. We're doing all kinds of preparation stories for people who might not be familiar with the process. So we hope that we're getting to as many people as we can. But we certainly, I mean, this has to be Southwest Florida. I don't know if it's quite like this in Southeast Florida, Robert, but just the number of people moving here. I mean, it's like every year or two when we see the new DMA rankings, we go up like a spot. And it seems like every year when I got here, I think we were 65. Now we're 61. So there's so many people moving here. But we do the best we can. We're always willing to go out and give hurricane talks for anyone who will have us.
Yeah.
We also have a new. We're working on updating our hurricane special that will air at the end of this month, and we did a sort of a new approach last year. We instead, everyone they'll usually just do a show dedicated to hurricane preparation. But we've kind of expanded it a bit and just do like a severe weather show. Just to cover all threats that we get in a year, but and the ratings were really good last year, so I think a lot of people responded to that, and we got a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah, we have monitors for Fort Myers, and we notice your guys' efforts a lot, and I think it makes a difference over there. Southeast Florida is almost out of land, so Southwest Florida and the Palm Beaches, the Treasure Coast are kind of the natural growth areas. And so it's definitely a challenge to keep up with the education efforts. You guys are crucial with that.
And Tim, I want to bring you in. I think we lost you there. You live in the Richmond area, so the kind of the Delmarva area. Not always prone to see hurricanes, but you guys have your glances with them. So first, I want to let you introduce yourself to everyone who's watching tonight, then kind of talk about what preparations are like there in your area as we approach as we are in the hurricane season now.
Sure, Scott. Yeah, apologies for earlier. Computer just kind of zonked out there and lost all internet, so to do the whole restart gig. But yeah, I live in Richmond, Virginia. You wouldn't really normally think of that as a hurricane market. But a lot of people around here have been here for a long time, and what scarred them is 12 years ago, Hurricane Gaston that went on through here, which I think when it passed through, It was a tropical storm or a very minimal grade hurricane, but it wreaked havoc in Richmond, especially. It flooded out the entire downtown, very historic area, lost a lot of historic structures because of it. We had about a foot of rain in one day in many areas. So the flooding was just devastating, and whenever somebody thinks of or hears about a storm developing that may have a trajectory up along the East Coast, any interest out in Central Virginia or out towards the Outer Banks, people immediately go back to, is it going to be as bad as Gaston? And then, of course, we had Sandy a couple years ago. I know it didn't hit us as bad as what it did up in Jersey and the tri-state area, but it got people talking. And then 2 years ago, we had Hurricane Arthur, which really tracked right up over the Outer Banks as a Category 2. I was there covering it. 4 a.m. when the eye went right over. I mean, 80, 90 mile an hour wind gusts. It was pretty amazing, but it wreaked a lot of havoc there as well, right over the 4th of July holiday weekend. So a lot of people in our area don't really pay attention to it unless it's coming up along the East Coast, as you would imagine, because a lot of people have beach homes out in Virginia Beach and along the Outer Banks. They tune in here what the forecast is going to be to go and board up their homes there. So a lot of the stuff that we do is geared towards more of that, because a lot of times if we see a storm that's going to make direct landfall on, say, Virginia Beach and move inland, we're just going to see, remnants of that storm. Of course, severe weather is huge with us around here. When the storm does make landfall, we always get the tornado watches up, and we get a lot of severe weather, severe thunderstorms, tornado outbreaks with Gaston. There are about 15 confirmed tornadoes just during that remnant tropical storm as it moved on through. So we gear a lot of our warning systems or our seasonal outlooks, our hurricane special, as Jason was talking about in his market. We do the same sort of thing here, but geared towards more of beach areas as he would be doing down there. And talking more about that, I mean, we mostly will focus on severe weather as well, just because hurricanes aren't, a big player in our weather usually. Every couple of years maybe we'll see a direct hit from one, but since I've been here about 4 years, it's just really been Arthur 2 years ago, and then Irene was before that, and Sandy. So, yeah, that's really what we've been doing here in Central Virginia. I mean, the remnants is really what we worry about.
Yeah, you like myself here in western North Carolina, and even up where David's at there in the western parts of Virginia, more of the severe weather outbreaks and flooding. Our biggest issues from landfall and hurricane systems is the flooding that takes place in the mountains of North Carolina, and then it seems like we always get anywhere between 5 to 6, 7 inches of rain when we have inland falling hurricanes move up the Appalachians. So definitely know that we don't see the surge in the wind. We do see the rain and, like you said, the severe weather from it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'll have my panelists. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, Scotty, I got one for Tim, and I think this relates a little bit to what the other guys were talking about kind of the hurricane amnesia, where they haven't had a storm in Florida in a couple of years. But Tim, in a part of the country where you don't necessarily get hurricanes a lot, does that make your job more difficult when you're trying to communicate with the viewers?
I think yes and no, because when we do start talking about it and saying there's a threat, people are like, oh, we don't hear this all the time, so we should pay attention. Now, if we were in a market where, there's quite common, people are like, oh, it's just another storm, it's not going to be as bad as the last one, or it can't be as bad as the last one, things like that. Can't happen to us is really the mentality that a lot of people have. So I think it makes it easier in the fact that people are, they don't expect tropical weather here in Central Virginia. It's not really a hurricane market. So when we are talking about it and the threat of it, they'll listen. Of course, that differs if you're along the Gulf Coast when they hear about it all the time, but up here I think it's a little bit easier to get that across. Severe weather, that's another story. We get that all the time, so people kind of tune that out, but that's a different story.
And I see Robert shaking his head, and I imagine he's got some thoughts too. And I guess with the general public, Robert, are there tactics that you guys have deployed that you have found useful in conveying the severity of that threat to the public?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is having a consistent message. So if Jason says something, we're saying pretty much the same thing, maybe not worded the same way because he's covering a different area than maybe we're talking about, but that's really the key, is just keeping the level, keeping it scientifically based, but making it understandable for folks. So that's kind of the tightrope we walk. I think we've gotten, as an agency, away from the really long, let's have I don't know if some of you had a chance to see the hurricane local statements, which is the product that we put out for hurricane warnings and watches and tropical storm warnings and watches. But we're trying to make it shorter and more concise and applicable. And in this day with apps, and I mean, it's really awesome that we can reach people right on their phone. That'll drive them hopefully to turn on the TV and see what's going on, to check on social media, to get information. And that's another thing too, that we have to keep providing a social media presence to provide good information, because we don't want, you know, the random, let me take the GFS in hour, you know, into day 10 and post that up and call it a forecast. We want to give context to that. We want to explain to folks what exactly the forecast is and isn't, because it's complex. Like right now, over the last few days, we've been watching the potential for that development off the Carolinas, you know, with the front there, and maybe a lobe might pop out. And that's one of those things where, you know, oh my gosh, you see it, it's going to be this massive thing off the Carolinas heading into the weekend, into next week. But in reality, the model spread is really wide. So we're trying to bring down the hype level and explain to folks in a clear way, so that way they know, okay, they're serious, they're kind of scared over there, something's going to go on, versus, okay, this is not as big as a threat. So we want to keep it honest, but at the same time push what we need to push in terms of a message to keep people safe.
Jason, speaking of social media, have you guys deployed tactics to kind of take advantage of social media, mobile apps, and that audience beyond the traditional television?
Yeah, we have. We actually, what's been very successful for us, and I know a lot of folks across the country do this with severe weather, but through our weather vendor, we'll do sort of an in-depth look at the weather using the webcam, and we'll go through all kinds of tropical weather graphics and show them some of the analysis tools that we use to sort of break down a lot of times the level of uncertainty with the forecast, maybe something that we don't have quite as much time to cover on the air. And those are hugely popular. I mean, we've got, I mean, even just in a matter of hours, we'll have something like 15 to 20,000 views, which is huge. So I think people really respond well to that. We've been utilizing Facebook Live a lot and interacting with viewers, and people really seem to like that. So it's been fun for us experimenting with all these social media tools. And something else, Robert, I wanted to ask you about. You brought up the local hurricane statement with Tropical Storm Colin, and I was wondering what your thoughts were about that, because one issue that we had when Tropical Storm Colin was just sort of going west of us in the Gulf of Mexico, our weather app was designed to push out those notifications. So people were getting alerts that said hurricane local statement, and it kind of caused some confusion because Colin was just expected to be a tropical storm that really wasn't going to have a direct impact on us. But when people were getting those push notifications and they saw hurricane statement on their phone, I don't know, it maybe just caused a little confusion. Have you heard anything about that? We talked to Dan O about that at the Weather Service office in Tampa to see if like maybe there was any way they could reword that to maybe make it tropical weather statement or something.
Yeah, the hurricane local statement is the name of our product, but every there's a product that's sent ahead of it kind of really fast after the Hurricane Center gets their stuff out, so it triggers all the apps and the website,
yeah,
and EAS call, all of that, and that's called a shorthand for it is a TCV. The thing is that we're still trying to get the formatting down for all of these new products, but the ideal would be that, let's say you had a viewer in Lee County, and the app would be smart enough to say, okay, they're at this location. It would look for the segment for that part of Lee County that they're in, and we're supposed to keep a headline. Now, normally when we call headlines, is like if you read one of our products and it has ... words, and then there's ... that's what we call a headline. With tropical products, we're supposed to do ... instead of the ... and we've noticed some vendors have had issues ingesting that just because it is a bit of a change from what they're used to. They're still trying to work to tweak the code, but I'm hoping that would replace, because instead of hurricane local statement, which is really ambiguous, it would be able to say tropical storm warning in effect until in effect for Lee County. It would be a little bit more specific to the person and what they're interested in, and that's one of the goals with the new products. I just think some of the vendors need to between us being consistent and using it, which it should be consistent now. Everybody around the country should have the same thing. And then the vendors all realizing, hey, this is here, we can code this, and then just getting it to work. Where normally this kind of thing takes probably about mid-year, just because people need to see some storms in action. But
Right.
hopefully, if we get another one, this will be figured out by then.
I remember when that went out, and I was actually over in Fort Lauderdale, and I looked at my phone and it said hurricane statement. I'm like, was there something I don't know? And then our general manager sent an email. And it's like, what's going on? Who's sending this out? Because we're saying, just tropical storm, and then they're getting this hurricane statement. But I think it's great information, and I know it'll be a process to maybe make some tweaks and kind of learn along the way.
Yeah, I'll pass that along. Our meteorologist in charge here in Miami, Pablo Santos, is very involved.
Oh yeah, I know Pablo.
Program. And Pablo wants to hear all that feedback, so I'll definitely take it to him, because he'll definitely get to work on it. We all want to send the right message, and we don't want to freak people out. We don't want to scare people unnecessarily. So anything we can do to improve it it's necessary part of the process. So I'll bring it up.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about it later.
Yeah, sure.
One thing I want to bring to you guys, we talked about using social media with you guys, but let's kind of talk about the reverse effect. And I know we all experienced the social media hype from different locations, different people. Talk to us about how you guys kind of have to decipher that information for your followers and kind of get them the correct information, and just the impact that that's had now that, like Robert said, we may see some of the models blowing up something big off the coast 8-9 days from now, and people latch onto that and spreading it like wildfire. So talk to us a little bit about how each of you all approach that, and how you kind of settle the dust with your followers and give them the right information. Tim, I'll let you go first.
Well, we usually run into that problem big time in the winter. Not so much with tropical systems. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, David knows. But
I know.
We run into those problems, and then the problem with social media is that anybody and everybody and their brothers can make a Facebook page, talk about the weather forecast, copy it from a local TV station or the weather service, change a few words, and put that out. And they love being able to access the models, which everybody can get access to these things nowadays. And they see one thing on the Euro 12 days out, and they blow it up, post the image on social media, and people freak out. So of course it comes to us that we have a reputation that we have to keep up. We can't go with a Euro 12-day forecast and say that's going to happen like these people on social media do. So we have to tell them, hey, it's a model forecast. Yeah, it was one run. We explain to them that these models are run, some of them 4 times a day, some of them twice a day. These change. These are going to change big time between now and when that 12 days out actually arrives. With tropical weather, we don't really see that here too much, because I feel like a lot of people around here don't really have that much of a knowledge of tropical weather as they would if they were a little bit further south in a market that experienced more hurricanes. So not so much now, but in the wintertime, absolutely. I'm sure Jason down south in Florida, you guys run into that possibly with hurricanes too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, there is quite a bit of misinformation sometimes. You know what? The one that comes to mind was last year, and I'm sure, Robert, you remember this, when Erica was approaching the Western Atlantic, and there was just a high degree of uncertainty on its track based on its interaction with some of the Caribbean islands. And if you looked at the 5-day cone, we were in the cone. So automatically, the newsroom starts to get a little excited and whatnot, and so our viewers start to get excited. So that was an issue, and just trying to relay through social media and on air the uncertainty in the forecasts based on the strength. And of course, Erica ended up doing nothing. It just basically fizzled out. But I remember we got raked through the coals with that storm, and learned a lot from it too.
Yeah, I think you guys got, on the weather service side at least, we have a little bit of insulation because we're not in front of the camera every day.
Yeah.
And it's a continuous operation. It's a little differently focused, but you have that challenge of you want to offer good information, but at the same time you want to offer it in relevant formats. And so And back when I was learning how to do forecasting, as a Met intern, David remembers, he was in Georgia too. I was in the Atlanta forecast office, and God forbid you mention snow in the AFD because it might go on the wire, get picked up, and it becomes front page news. You have, EMs calling. It's so now we have such a proliferation of guidance out there, and it's a good thing in that it gives people more access to it. Students, the emergency managers really like to study up on it. A lot of them have a personal hobby in meteorology. The one thing is we have to be able to, as a weather enterprise, everybody be on the same page, or at least a similar page when there's a threat as to, hey, this is what's, this is kind of the zone of what may happen and the uncertainty and what we think is possible, and not scare people, not alarm them too much, but at the same time not lull them into complacency that, well, it may not happen because we're not confident enough to say it might happen. So it's a really tight line to walk, and a lot of the time you're just trying to give the best information you can. On our end, people see us as an authority, whereas Jason goes into folks' home every night. He has to earn their trust, and that's a very different relationship. Not many people come in and see us in the weather forecast office, and so we try really hard to keep that trust level, not only for our agency and for us as practitioners of meteorology, but for all the partners out there, the emergency managers, because they're, everybody's trying to do the best we can together, and it's not good if anybody has credibility hits or anything like that. So it's a challenge, but at the same time, we have to sometimes do rumor control, and that can be a little bit testy because some folks get upset, and we try to do it as tastefully, answer questions, things like that. We find we can be pretty successful in providing good info that way.
Yeah, and that's another great place for social media, especially Facebook Live, when we can answer people's direct questions, since there is so much misinformation, and kind of connect the dots for them. But Tropical Storm Eric was just really difficult because there was so much uncertainty in the forecasts, and if you looked at the forecast models, we had some strengthening it into a pretty intense storm heading towards South Florida, and then others that can just completely tore the storm apart. And trying to relay that to the public was a challenge.
Yeah, and folks want absolute. I'm going to make a decision. I need absolute, and it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray in there.
And then you have news managers coming back, and they want to know, okay, so what can we expect? What's going to happen? And it's just you hate not being able to give a clear-cut answer. Yeah. But that's forecasting. I guess that's weather in general.
Yeah, you guys down south have kind of the summertime months taken up. Meanwhile, Tim and I kind of have the winter and springtime months taken up with snowstorms and everything else. And Tim, I don't know if you've seen it just today. A lot of people up here in Virginia are deathly afraid of that D word, derecho.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Now, I have been asked so many different times if we're going to get a derecho because some person online posted, hey, look at what's going to happen tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. It's very tough, and I mean, I went on air because I got so many questions about it, emails and coworkers asking. I'm like, I'm not going to throw out that D word, that derecho word, just because, well, we don't know it until it's like already happened or happening as it's going on.
And it's such a rare thing too. What was it, 3 years ago?
Yes.
That all of a sudden it was like a brand new word to everybody, and it's like, dude, derecho, all over the headlines, derecho this, derecho that, and from that point on, every big thunderstorm cluster was another derecho, and people should batten down the hatches because their trees are going to blow their houses away. So it was really funny to see that, and I know you're talking about. I've seen that too popping up. I think it was the anniversary of one of them a couple days ago, wasn't it?
No, it was actually from today. Somebody posted the 4-kilometer NAM and 12-kilometer NAM saying that we're going to get derecho tomorrow.
Well, I think Capital Weather Group put out an article recently about derechos, didn't they? Asking for the correct definition because the different agencies have different definitions.
I think so.
Yeah.
I always thought it had to be over 500 miles with frequent 70-mile-an-hour winds.
And I think that was the question, was the component of, well, how long does it have to go for, and what's the strength of the winds? But
That's what I remember from early synoptic.
But
Yeah, but I mean
Go
that's
ahead,
that's
David.
just something that we have to that's just something that we have to worry about up here in terms of social media and hype and everything else too, is that more up north where Tim and I are, and even you guys in the Carolinas, hey, somebody posted 10-day snow model and showing, hey, the European model is giving us 24 inches, meanwhile the other GFS model is giving us only 6. What gives? So I can definitely tell where you guys are having a tough time forecasting, especially in the tropics, is because, I mean, there's so many factors that go into both snowstorms and hurricanes. I mean, I grew up in Florida. I went through 2004, 2005 in the state of Florida. I know exactly what it's like, and it's just, it can be tough sometimes, but social media has at least opened that door for us to be like, hey, this is what's going on, but it's also opened the door for others who wanted that access to the models and everything else. Now they actually have access to it, and if they want the attention, they have that attention. So like you said, Robert, we just have to go in there and earn their trust every single night. And it's tough sometimes, especially when people throw out those hype words like derecho, historic snowstorms, tornadoes, this and that. So it's definitely a delicate balance that we have to do.
David, you don't like the word snowmageddon?
Oh,
Just call it a snowstorm and don't name anything.
yeah. Winters are pretty rough up here. I mean, I know this is a hurricane-based form we're talking about, but you know, it's funny to see the difference between the seasons here and down south. You guys deal with kind of similar, just different storm systems.
Robert, I wanted to ask you, on last week's show, we had Gary, whose last name I'm not going to butcher for a second week in a row, the former lead meteorologist at the Mount Holly office, and he was talking about how, because they don't get hurricanes as often up there, they would have to constantly kind of retrain and remind the office, these are the different products, this is what we do during a hurricane. Now, you obviously are in a little bit of a different scenario, and you have your Hurricane Center friends not far from where you're sitting, but I'm wondering, how do you guys prep for that every season? Are there motions you go through?
Oh yeah, we actually have every office, believe it or not, even Greenville Spartanburg has to do tropical training, and that is in, I think, within 2 tiers. So 2 offices inland, most of them have to do tropical training, and we have to cover every product, including the aforementioned beasts, the Hurricane Local Statement, the TCD, which is the newer one that helps get all the apps excited. And the other thing we go through, and it's really growing, is effective messaging. I think that's going to be the training that's really going to help us as an agency turn the corner, because in the past we would write this wonderful book of an HLS, put it out and say, our job is done. We have done the best we can. And it was complete gibberish. Not many people could understand it. And now we're more and more getting into common language products, trying to keep things clear. And I think it's going to be interesting. But yeah, all the offices are doing their hurricane training. We have, I don't know how many of you are used to the Comet modules, but we have tropical modules very similar to those. And there's about 200 of them it feels like you have to take every year, but they're good refreshers. And if you go inland, there's specific ones for example, New England hurricanes, Canadian and maritime hurricanes. And there's also some sections talking about like Hurricane Opal's impact in the North Georgia mountains, those different topographic effects, because you have to handle those as well as part of the inland office tropical program. So it's kind of interesting, but we're about to finish most of our training as a staff here, and I think almost every other office is the same way. I know Charleston, South Carolina, I have a buddy that's up there in the WFO, and they've already had, I think, 2 of the 3 named storms in their area. They've had HLSs, so he says, I feel like an HLS pro at this point, but it's just part of the process. We all learn together, and we get through it together.
And then Robert, and then Jason and Tim, I want to bring you in on this. The hurricane is bearing down on your area. What's the protocol for you guys at the weather office, and at the TV station? Do you hunker down there, or do you evacuate, or what's the protocol for you guys? I guess maybe case-by-case scenario, or?
Yeah, I think it depends on where the direct hit's going to happen. Here in Richmond, it would be a direct impact either in the Outer Banks or Virginia Beach. After Gaston hit, our station purchased a massive tractor-trailer-sized generator. And this thing is a beast. They fire that thing up, you can hear it down the block. And to ensure, because during that storm, they lost power at the station and they were unable to broadcast. So they did this to ensure that that would never happen again. And it's come into use plenty of times. Whenever there's even the threat of, if we're in the cone for a hurricane or tropical storm within the next 24 hours, they'll fire that thing up and they'll keep it cranking for days just to ensure that we don't go off air once. And we'll do the 24-hour, 12-hour shifts each and just crank it out until the storm passes.
Jason, what about you guys?
So I've been here 5 years. We've had a couple of close calls, but the way that our hurricane policy is set up is we have a landfall crew and then a recovery crew. And so then we split it up that way. We have a lot of meteorologists, but our setup is kind of unique at Waterman Broadcasting. But we have a total of 9 meteorologists between the two stations. So I guess half of us would be there for landfall and half of us would be there for recovery. I'm trying to think of you. There we go. Hey, David.
Yes.
Do you work at WVIR in Charlottesville, or?
No, it is CAV and the Triopoly.
Oh, okay. I was confused because there's a Waterman Broadcasting up there too, as part of the same station. So anyway, I got a little.
Yeah. No, the other station.
Okay, gotcha. So that's basically the way it works. We have so many new reporters coming in. For some reason, there's a tremendous amount of turnover in this market. So we're constantly having to retrain some of the reporters to sort of to let them know what the whole process is like. But the closest call that we had was, and Robert, I'm sure you remember this, is when Debbie was offshore. Was that 2012 or 2013?
I think that was 2012. Yeah.
2012.
I was at Cape Sandblast staring into the Gulf.
It was 2013 because that's the year my nephew was born, and I held him, and I was actually in Sarasota that day, so I remember it was 2013.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we had a close call with that storm. We were in the cone for a while, and so it ended up just kind of skirting along the coast. But for a while there, it became stationary, just kind of sat and spun off the coast, and we had, I think, one of the largest tornado outbreaks in South Florida. From a weak tropical storm, so that was still. I mean, there was a lot that happened, but it didn't make a direct impact.
Yeah, I remember. I think there was 2 fatalities from that. It broke the longest national streak without a tornado fatality. We went over a year, and it was kind of sad. It was a lady and her daughter that were in a mobile home, and it's one of those things. For us here, our coup plan is We have a lot of concrete that was poured to build this office here, where both the Miami Forecast Office and the Hurricane Center are at. So we have to have a plan to leave. Our sister office is Key West, so they have a wonderful facility that's pretty much a bunker. If we were unable to use our facility, they could back us up for a while. The Tampa, Melbourne, and Jacksonville forecast offices all could also back up our functions. And for over on the Hurricane Center side, they've actually enacted this in 1992 with Andrew. They send people to Washington. They send some people up there to kind of be able to replicate, and then they can be backed up from up there in case this site went down. But the good thing is, because everything's consistent, we can all pretty much function. But in this building, thankfully, for the most part, we have generators. There's quite a bit of concrete between me and the outside right now. No cell phones will work in here without a repeater, so it's just one of those things. We put the shutters in, hunker down, and go through it.
Oh man, no cell phones work?
Yeah, we have to have repeaters. It's actually, you can kind of see it there, but we have to have it repeated in order to have them work in the building. And even then, the repeater is on the other side of the wall from me, and I only get 3 bars, even though if I walk over there, it'd be full bars right underneath it. It's pretty. The concrete's about that thick, each wall, and we have concrete wall on the outside. Then our kind of cubicle office area where we can do studies and computer work. Then we have another concrete wall. There's a hallway, then there's another concrete wall, and then there's a room behind me that you see. So quite a bit of padding in case of strong winds.
First world problems.
I was gonna say I know where to hunker down at now if I'm in South Florida. But you mentioned Hurricane Andrew, and this was my last question I wanted to bring to you, Robert, especially, and then you guys chime in if you want to. What is the Hurricane Andrew effect so many years later? Does people still remember that storm? Has it kind of been off as a memory now? Talk to us about the Hurricane Andrew effect to today, even though it happened in '92.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been almost 25 years. I was here for that. I grew up in the neighborhood the office is in. So Hurricane Andrew, thankfully, this area, we didn't have power for about a week, but most people had their roofs, had windows. You go south of here to the next exit off Florida's Turnpike, Kendall Drive, and there wasn't much left south of that other than the actual highway. And our radar is down there. There's a zoo, and even today, I gave a school talk, and I'm looking. This school was completely demolished. There's plaques thanking folks for helping them rebuild after Hurricane Andrew in 1992 on the wall. Most of these kids, maybe their parents were in the school at that time, and it's we definitely have a new group that has never experienced it before. But I'll just put it this way: there are not many kids in South Florida that were born after 1992 with the name Andrew. It left a mark. It's something that it brings up. When you bring it up, it's almost like people zone in. They tell you their story of where they were and what happened and how they came out. And it was a big social disruptor in South Florida. And as we hit the 25th anniversary next year, our office is going to commemorate it. We're going to have a lot of retrospectives. Roger Edwards at SPC was here at the time at the Hurricane Center, and he has a lot of good memories and great pictures from before and unfortunately the destruction after. And I think we're going to definitely work to make something that shares it with the new generation, but also allows people to remember in a positive manner. So it changed a lot down here. It changed the way of life, but I think we've grown for the better. We really have.
I forgot to unmute my mic, but yeah, it is, like you said, hard to believe it's been 25 years ago. So we're a little past 9 o'clock. So guys, our panelists, do you have any more questions kind of before we wrap up?
I think it's been oh, go ahead, James.
I was just going to ask Jason, who said he's filling in on the morning shift tomorrow, at this point he's just going to stay up all night, or if he's going to go close his eyes for a minute.
No, I think I'll maybe get a few hours of sleep. The only thing is it takes me so long to finally...
That 2 a.m. alarm is going to be here soon.
And for the last 2 weeks, I was filling in for the chief doing evenings. So, and that's part of my role is whenever... well, we have two chiefs. We have one in the morning and one in the evening, and that's a long story. But so my role is to kind of to swing and fill in for both of them. But it really it's hard on the sleep schedule sometimes.
Hey James,
yes,
next time we do an Inside the Weather Center show,
yeah,
we're going to Jason's station. We're going to talk about the two chiefs.
Yeah, that sounds like something he's in a position to talk about.
Oh, God. We might have to go until 10 o'clock. We have a senior chief and then this chief. I'm just a junior. I'm a junior woodchuck meteorologist.
You're a deputy.
All right. Well, anybody else have any follow-ups? Kit, Peter?
I think it's been a really great show. I'm glad to get some people from Florida on Carolina Weather Group because, like we've said all night, like it's sort of the first state that comes to mind when we think of hurricanes making landfall, and it's just I think it's a good thing that we've talked about how like that hurricane amnesia that a lot of people are getting.
Definitely. Peter, you got anything?
Nope. It was a good show.
All right. Well,
man of many words.
All right. We'll let everyone promote their social media and all that, how we can get in touch with you. So, Tim, we'll let you start off. And for our followers and viewers who are watching, how can they get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, my professional page, Meteorologist Tim Pandajis, and then Twitter, Tim Pandajis WRIC.
Very good. All right, and Robert, you want to promote the Miami Forecast Office social media platforms?
Absolutely. Look us up. We're NWS Miami. We try to keep it pretty fun on there. And we get some interesting questions. So I'll be on the evening shift tonight curating our social media. So hopefully you guys check it out, and we'll see if we get any interesting questions overnight.
National Weather Service After Dark.
Yeah, when I was in Tampa, they used to have a joke is we get some interesting questions after dark. We might make that a segment, maybe for our YouTube page. It'd be fun.
Robert, I'll go on there and ask you some interesting questions, just to keep your job in.
Keep me awake, right?
Yeah.
And then to a fellow Florida Gator. I know Joey Mustiller's sad because he is also a Florida Gator fan. So, Jason, how can we get in touch with you?
And Robert, I made a point not to bring up the fact that Florida State lost to Florida in the Super Regionals in baseball. So I did well not mentioning that. Okay. You can find me on Facebook, Meteorologist Jason Dunning, or Twitter, just Jason Dunning.
Very good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. We appreciate having you all, and hopefully we can wrangle you back in and come back on one of our shows. Hopefully we didn't run you off or scare you off or anything like that. So, one bit of news before we log off. I do want to say congratulations to the folks in Mississippi. One of my friends, and Kit knows him as well, Thomas Weinset. Is a forecaster for the National Weather Service in Jackson, Mississippi, and they just got a new radar. We were just talking about radars in the Carolinas and the Charlotte area, how the lack of radar coverage there. And Thomas and I was talking about that before he went out to Jackson, and just read earlier today where they got approved to get a new radar site, and you can find that article on our Facebook page. So good news for the folks there in Mississippi, especially during the spring and the winter times. They get some nasty tornadoes that go through that area, so I know that's a very welcome sight for those guys. So
yeah, I saw the article and I didn't realize that it was for the Jackson Weather Service. I thought it was just for the so it's on the the university campus, and they use it there.
It's on campus, and it's going to be servicing the western part of the Jackson forecast regions, which they didn't have very good radar coverage from my understanding from Thomas. So
we'll see. Maybe UNC Charlotte can get a radar site, and then both Raleigh and GSP could use it.
There you go.
I mean, NC State's already got one on their campus.
You are the Storm president next year, right?
This is true. I could lobby for that, or put in some legislature, make a executive order to install a 88D dual pole Doppler.
We should create a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
We'll do that. All right, next week.
Robert, I think we could use another radar site in Southwest Florida, because we're kind of in a little bit of a gap there.
Oh yeah, I think
there you are.
The forecasters in both TBW and MFL, it's on our Christmas list every year, but Santa hasn't delivered it yet.
I know, and then you go out to Oklahoma and Norman, and you just look across the horizon there, and you count 7 in like 10 miles, and I'm just like, come on, you need all those out there? But anyways,
I want to see if a GoFundMe program or page would be faster than the Senate.
Maybe you can give us an update next week on that. So next week we're going to finish up our hurricane series and hopefully have some emergency managers on. I know Shay has put in a word to the Charleston, South Carolina area, and I've put in a word to Wilmington, North Carolina area, hopefully to get some emergency managers on to kind of talk about how they're preparing for the hurricane season. So if not, we may have another open mic night because we don't have any backup guests, so we'll have to play it as we see. So, anyways, after that, we'll have Dave Malkoff on from the Weather Channel. He just shot a special about the state of Oklahoma and just the uptick of tornadoes that they have year after year. So he's going to come on and talk to us about what he found out from his studies. So Looking forward to have Dave on towards the end of the month, and then we'll be into July. So I don't have that list in front of me, so I don't know what shows those are. But anyways, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the cooler temperatures this weekend, and don't forget to tell your dad Happy Father's Day. Until next week, we'll see you later.